Hello, I'm Stevens J. Carter, and that's an S after Stevens. I'm a local artist based in Washington, D.C. I've been painting professionally, I would say, about almost 20 years. If one is aware of the history of my work, one would say the things that are very, very important to me, and that is the use of color. I think if there's such an appropriate term, I abuse the use of color. I like to exploit color because color is energy, and color is a very difficult thing for most individuals to handle in a very exploitative manner. So after, of course, I've done my studies and my research over the years, I'm very comfortable with pushing color to the extreme. Color is energy. Color is positive energy. And if you can manipulate color in that context to make it push forward a very positive direction, then that's a great thing. So as a theme, as a personal theme, I use that as a safety net. I'm comfortable with that. I have a number of mural projects in the tri-state area. I've exhibited all over the country, and I've been asked to do an artist in residence program with you. Basically, the residency is going to consist of me designing and installing a large-scale mural outside your entrance. It'll technically be a mixed media relief. We're in the research process now, and what we want to actually find is the lightest metal possible that has the longest durability and is probably the easiest material to actually shape and mold, with a painted surface on it, a very colorful painted surface. So it'll slightly be three-dimensional with layers of metal, welded to each other in the configuration of my actual two-dimensional studies. The project will probably take about maybe 2 to 3 months. During the project, I'm going to interface with your student population, your faculty, and the community at large to an extent. See if we can develop poetry, thoughts and readings about the process, about the mural. I'm going to interpret this material. Somehow, if possible, I'm going to implement some of the interpretation into the imagery that we construct. One thing I really, really want to do is I want to go back to the basics. I want to create a foundation with the basics, and from there I want to start stretching the boundaries once the basics are all in place. And it's kind of a safety net to make sure that you end up with something that's, right on target with your initial goals with any project, artistic project actually. One of the great joys of practicing art over the years is that I've understood is that there is a universal language, whether it's a visual language, whether it's an audio language, or whether it's a physical gesture. There are certain things that we as human beings connect to innately without having any prerequisite of information about, and we respond to. I tend to want to hone into those universal energies per se, and latch on to them, let them guide me. And once you do that, sometimes it might guide you in a path that you're not quite sure about, but you have to trust. Some of your greatest artists become really, really great once they hit their 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, simply because they've gone through a whole cycle where they go back to their early childhood and start releasing some of the inhibitions that hinder their ability to actually convey on a very universal level. Some of the things that I think are important to me for this particular project is to have a very positive theme for the mural. Some of the things that come to mind immediately are things that deal with new beginnings, new horizons. When you're open with your artistic process, you get your greatest mileage. Started doing some sketches, basic doodles of concepts that I thought I would like to at least entertain. Part of my process when I do anything artistically is very free-like. I don't want to put unnecessary weight on the process. Just put pencil and pen to paper and let it kind of take on a path all its own. Students, in my interactions with them, I want them to, be free to think, dare to think positively and creatively. Munzel, who's developed an incredible color theory. Every art student has had some opportunity to study Munzel's color theories, which I've studied well in my schooling and learned Munzel inside and out, and then moved on. My work, if you look at the full scope, has often been compared to a lot of Kandinsky's work, which is an incredible honor. I helped and was in charge of completing a $500,000 project at the Convention Center is Sol LeWitt, an 80-foot stairwell in the Convention Center that just basically deals with a lot of primary colors. However, they're just opposed to each other, where there's this whole, philosophical approach about the alliance of the colors. So Sol's one, contemporary that, number one, you look at color and see, and you can just look at the simplicity of a color grid and say, wow, regardless of what I think about this, it does invoke a certain emotion inside me based on color alone. I think a lot of our artists in our culture, in our generation, forget that they have an incredible place in our world, in our society. And that place is, whether they realize or own up to it, is that they actually are shaping and molding what our mass population encounters every day. And I think it's easy for an artist to, go with the status quo quite often. Just because baggy pants are in today doesn't mean that the next artist that comes through, even the young artist that's in your student population and matures to be a leading artist, doesn't mean that that particular artist should not step outside of the boundaries, but step outside the boundaries in a positive, leading way. So my theme and mandate for a number of years have been to actually take that particular position and step outside of the boundaries in a very positive way, in a very leading context, and not fear that you're not going to be accepted or given the rights of positive passage. Because if you're a good artist and you're more than a qualified leading artist, then you'll take that position and you'll shape and mold it. So number one, the masses come into your world. A good sign of a good artist is that they create something and they create it to the point, universal level of creation, where their message is read and accepted in a very, very positive way. Art matters, if not for anything else. It offers you a different perspective on life. Art always balances our calculating, engineering, staccato-ish way of addressing our day every day, because it is, again, an interpretation. When it stops becoming art, it becomes a technical execution, so all you're doing is replicating things. But when you do get the interpretation through one individual's mind and eyes, you're offering a different way to think. And it doesn't always mean that it has to be acceptable or good or bad, but it's an interpretation. So art clearly matters. There's no questions about it. I'm very excited about the project, and the only thing that I often request of my students is, once you do think, just be willing to put the time in to support your thought constructively and positively. And we'll have a great year, and we'll have a great experience.